If you follow Newfangled at all, you probably noticed that we've launched Newfangled Frontier, which is a business unit of Newfangled that focuses on supporting agencies and integrating AI into their firms. And anytime we launch something exciting like this, it's a great excuse to get on the phone with our community, with our clients, our previous clients, industry peers and friends. It's been a blast just having all of these conversations. But I always like to observe what patterns emerge as we're having these conversations. Like what's going on? Like what's in the zeitgeist? What are you all thinking about? And cultural adoption of AI is something that comes up in pretty much every conversation that I have. I'm not saying that we are totally on the other side of this process at all, but I did want to share a few things that we've learned along the way to help get us to a place where I'm proud of. I'm proud of the way that our staff embraces AI in their daily lives. I'm proud that they want to share their accomplishments with each other. I'm proud that they brainstorm new ways to operate using these tools. And I started thinking about and reflecting on what got us here, what we did well to help us arrive at this reality, even though I'm sure there's there's a lot further to go. The first thing that I would recommend is don't have your team use a mediocre tool and don't ship a mediocre tool if you're building internally on your own. We learned that lesson the hard way a few years ago because we had a large staff of writers. We produce a lot of thought leadership content for our clients. And a few years ago, Jasper, writer.com, early GPT, these tools were coming out claiming to be excellent at developing writing that sounded pretty human. And we were interested in exploring whether that was true. And so we asked our writers to start to experiment with these tools with their work and start to try and integrate it into their workflow. And naturally, they bristled. And if I'm honest, we could have been more sympathetic at the time. I mean, these are people who had built their entire careers around their craft, and then they were being asked to integrate this new, unproven technology into their workflow. It was a difficult time. And what we realized as we continued to push them to try to make it work is that they were right. The tools were not ready. We were actually slowing our writers down. We were getting in their way of producing high quality product. It was making their work lives hell. It didn't work. And so we finally figured that out and we built something bespoke that integrated our writers' IP from topic ideation to style guide development to their methodology for conducting interviews and surfacing a profound, specific novel point of view. And we built a tool that did eventually enable them to produce content more quickly. And they were proud of their work product. But it took us a while to realize, okay, if the tool isn't good enough that your team is excited to use it, the tool probably isn't there yet. So that was lesson one. Lesson two is allowing your people to accomplish their wins on their own time and on their own terms. So whenever we build something, whether it's an operational tool or a tool that helps us deliver our services more efficiently, we don't change the workflow internally right away. We find a way for our staff to experiment with that tool alongside the legacy process. So we're sort of double investing because we invest in actually building the tool, or if you're not building it internally, adopting, paying for this tool, licensing it. And when you've got that in hand, if you're running an agency, you really want to see the fruits of that investment sooner rather than later. And so it's hard to watch your people still use a legacy way of doing things. What we found is giving that whole process a little bit of breathing room, allowing people to have the safety net of the old workflow while starting to dabble with the new workflow gives them an opportunity to use the tools under less pressure and to arrive at the win on their own terms. So for instance, we've built a tool that supports our staff in doing that. It is an integrated marketing campaign builder. So it collaborates with a strategist on the entire strategy. It helps define the architecture of the campaign, and then it actually develops all of the assets, inclusive of thought leadership assets, emails, paid media, interactive assets, whatever is required by the campaign, this thing can build and be refined by our team. We have our strategy team, when they were first adopting this, we just allowed the old workflow to coexist with it. So it's kind of like, okay, you can use this tool to build an email from scratch using custom HTML and launch it through this one tool, or you can use the 70-step process that we currently have for ideating, writing, designing, developing, testing, and deploying that email. Your choice, totally your choice. And giving people that freedom to work with the new tool, but have the backup or the safety net of the old process for a little while really helped them wrap their heads around what was possible and come to the conclusion on their own about what was useful to them and where they could find time savings and where their job was made a little bit easier. And the third thing that's been really helpful inside of our firm, and I guess this is where I started, is that sharing accomplishments has been really crucial to the shift in mindset and the shift in our culture. There's a moment, it's like a light bulb going off for someone when they go from understanding what a tool can do to asking themselves, hang on, what else can this do for me? And once they start asking themselves that question and they get curious about how they can integrate this tool for themselves and for their clients, then the pride of their work only increases and they're eager to share that accomplishment with their colleagues. And so a lot of the agencies I've been talking to, they're concerned because they're worried that the adoption of AI is going to rob their team of their sense of ownership in their craft. They're worried that their team is going to feel like they're no longer makers of something. They're simply, cogs in a machine, and they don't get to do the thing that they've tied their identity to professionally. And I get that. I mean, I'm worried about that for myself. I've worried about that for our team, but it's not been what I've observed. What I've observed happen is somebody finds a way to use these tools to amplify their expertise. It's not taking away capabilities, it's actually giving them capabilities they didn't have before. And once they have those capabilities, they think differently about the problems that they're trying to solve. Their creative solutions are much more interesting. They are more complex because there aren't constraints that used to be there. And so then when they create a tool or they create a solution for a client that just wasn't possible before, they're so proud to show it. And at least at Newfangled, they'll flock to Slack and they'll say, hey, look at this amazing thing I just created. And then other people will jump in and say, oh my gosh, I think I can use that for these two clients over here. Or I can't believe you had that idea. I'm stealing this from you. It's great. And that's not coming from leadership. That's coming from everyone inside of the business. And so the more that you can give your team tools that are actually going to work for them, give them the space to experiment with them on their own, and create some kind of platform for sharing wins, I have found that unlocks a shift in the culture. Because prior to these last maybe even 6 months or so, we had people trying to experiment here and there, but it wasn't until we really fully rebuilt our agency from the ground up, gave people tools that totally unlocked the way that they work day in and day out, that they started coming up with ideas for how to do their work differently. And that changed the culture overall. But I'd love to hear from you. I'm sure this has been on your mind just as much as it's been on ours. So in the comments, tell me about your journey. Tell me what's working for your team as you encourage them to adopt these systems and tools. And don't forget to keep an eye on Newfangled Frontier. We've got a lot to say about these kinds of topics. We're building a lot of tools to empower teams like yours to bring their agency into this next chapter.